Is this technology the right tool to achieve AGI? Or do we miss something here?
So there is some extent to which, if we want a smarter artificial intelligence, we are going to have to do certain things like combining different neural network architectures and have them play nice together. And I think we are starting to see a little bit of that. Like we see some of that Chat GPT-4 integration with Dolly 3, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of exactly what I'm talking about, right? That's the beginning of, the combination of a linguistic center of the brain with a visual cortex.
So there's already a fully autonomous AI run
McDonald's, yeah.
McDonald's in
Yeah.
Texas.
So scary.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Deep Talks podcast. I'm Regulus with my co-host Ferris.
Hello, people. This is me, Eris here. Okay, and today we are going to discuss a very deep topic about AI and consciousness. So I hope you are ready, all of you, to receive questions and give your answers. Okay? So, Nicholas, come on, go ahead. It's
Well,
your time.
We have three guests with us. You guys want to introduce yourselves before we start? Give a little background about yourself and your name.
Sure.
Come on, Ricardo, we start with you.
Oh, me? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm Ricardo. I am a game designer, graduated from Full Sail. I also do a lot of development in general, a little bit of web development, a little bit of experimentation with artificial intelligence through Python. So that's my background. I've been interested in artificial intelligence since I was a child, playing around with concepts.
Nifty, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Josh, and I run the Nifty art brand. I came to AI through the digital art space on the crypto side of things, and I started with GANs, with BQ GANs in 2021, and I've pretty much been just trying to develop my art and explore different types of AI since then, since 2021. And I've been when I'm not doing my own art, I've been like an alpha beta tester for everybody. Stable Diffusion, Dolly. I was in OpenAI's closed alpha group. So I have a background in philosophy where I never never talked about artificial intelligence. I focus on ethics. So now that I'm kind of in AI, I talk a lot about ethics, and I'm trying to kind of go back and study more about AI through sort of the philosophical lens.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
Janet?
Yeah, hi, I'm Janet. Janet Azimuth is what I go by on the internet. I studied informatics for 4 years, and I consider myself a creative technologist because I love the intersection between creativity and artwork. I'm a music producer. I'm a video editor. I've worked in television. I worked in broadcasting. I DJ. I kind of do it all. I do visuals, and I've recently entered the AI space. I've created a couple of GPTs. And I've just been kind of using AI in different ways. Sometimes I'll use AI generated song lyrics and things like that. But yeah, the AI space intrigues me. And in my day job, I'm actually using machine learning to translate several different of our web properties into multi-language. That's me.
Awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. The list of questions that I wrote. What is your personal experience with AI? I think you already answered that, right? So maybe I should jump to the next one. All right. What do you think the impacts of AI will be in the next 10 years?
That feels to me a lot more like a 5-year question. 10 years becomes very difficult to predict.
So 5 years then.
Yeah, so I think we're already starting to see an explosion with things like the new transformer model, and I already see that starting to be potentially replaced with things like Mamba, different kinds of architectures that are coming out with these different models, where I think we're starting to see artificial brains slowly coming together, more generalized and generalizable intelligences that are capable of more broad spectrum things. And the thing that most excites me about the possibility space here is not just that you have more capable, like text generator or art generator, but that you're starting to see these things become integrated. You have a text generator that's capable of also generating art and capable of recognizing what is in a particular piece of art and commenting on it. So they're starting to be able to integrate these various pieces of information. As they're better able to integrate these pieces of information, I think you'll see it start to form more cohesive understandings of the world and what it's like. And I think that's going to lead to a more sophisticated kind of intelligence, right? Where whenever it goes to answer a question, it's not just making predictions about the next thing it's supposed to say in a sentence, but it's actually thinking about the world as it understands it, right? Correlating data about how the world actually is and giving you an answer based off of what it knows. And then we're going to see some pretty radical changes once we hit that point. So it becomes very difficult to predict beyond that threshold. Um, I think it's going to be interesting because we're going to hit a point where if we can keep investors interested in the technology, uh, we are going to keep expanding on the tool set until it becomes increasingly profitable. Right now, I think it's more expensive than it is truly profitable. People are excited about it, but because of how much energy it's eating through, it's not really um, producing more money for investors than it is eating up. But I'm hoping that we'll see that start to flip at a certain point in the near future as its intelligence becomes more generalizable. And once it becomes profitable, it'll be a lot more self sustaining. And then we'll start to see more broad scale societal changes.
Do you guys have anything to add to that, Nifty, Janet?
To the question or
Like,
to
yeah,
Ricardo's comments?
I mean, you can answer the question your own way if you want, but I was like,
Yeah. I mean, I've got something.
go for it.
Josh, you want to go first, or?
It doesn't matter. I was just going to say that kind of what Ricardo's pointing out is essentially the difference between AI and AGI, right? Like a function that performs tasks versus more of a, not sentient, that's not the right word, but more of a
Autonomous.
it's so easy to get into like the philosophical problems, but closer to an actual human way of thinking. That's kind of what Ricardo is pointing out.
Yeah, I saw an ad the other day, or like a headline on a YouTube, and it said there's going to be an AGI in 7 months. That's the prediction right now. In 7 months, there will be a fully functional AGI, if there isn't
What I,
already.
Maybe there is AGI, but we don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
Maybe the companies hide it from us.
I mean, there
We don't
was
know.
something maybe 4 or 5 months back with the open AI. I don't follow everything too much, and also like whatever's in the news, I don't typically pay too much attention to. But when there was that
Some
kind of
rumors, yes.
the debacle with open AI and the falling out
Yes.
with Microsoft and all that, people were saying that they were already like much closer to AGI than they anticipated, and that was kind of a big reason for like the push for all this money and the safety protocols and all of this. So it's hard to know what's true and what's accurate, but yeah, based on the rate at which the technology advances, it's really hard to tell, and who's working on it full time. Like it's really hard to tell how fast it could come, but I generally think it's going to come a lot faster than most people are talking about.
I agree with that completely. One direction that I believe that AI will be going into is a more personalized AI experience where we will all have our own like kind of like um, AI that's programmed to work for us. You know what I mean? Like it'll learn our schedules, it'll remind us of things, as opposed to just having to manually set our calendar reminders. It'll be similar to a personalized Siri or an
Serious.
Alexa that will just kind of be following. It could exist on our watch, it could exist on our phones. And I'm not
And on
talking about like
Neuralink.
a robot or anything like that, but I'm talking about, something more personalized, and but with that would need more of a AGI, a generative AI, as opposed to a procedural AI where you just kind of tell it what to do and
Yeah.
then it responds.
The question here is, can we achieve AGI through the current technology? I mean, through LLMs or large language models. Is this really, let's say, is this technology the right tool to achieve AGI, or do we miss something here? Okay, large language models, these models are made of words. Okay, they lack the, let's say, the experience that biological systems like our, let's say, like humans. Okay, so do these models really can evolve to be, uh, let's say, general machines or general reason machines? Okay, what do you think about this?
Well, if I may, first of all, in a way, everything is potentially reducible to words to an extent. I mean, there are certain experiences that are hard to describe, certainly. But, for instance, DNA, you can reduce down to, pairs of, G and A, the different base proteins you can describe. And um, you can describe the different colors of the rainbow. Uh, you can describe the different facets of the world through language. Uh, and if you can't describe it through language, you can certainly describe a lot of it through mathematics, which is in itself kind of language. So if there's something that cannot be described through language, it's very likely something that we would have difficulty touching intellectually at any rate anyway. Even just in terms of our not only our science, but in terms of all of our philosophical and intellectual pursuits, right? Our entire framework of thinking is almost entirely ensconced within linguistic frameworks. Um, I would say going beyond that, the question of whether or not these things can achieve artificial general intelligence, I think it partially depends on what you really mean by that and where you're going with that. Because we're already seeing like limited degrees of that in a way, right? We're already seeing some of that, interconnectivity of data where, a text generator can describe an image for you. Um, and this is already a certain limited degree. I think something that Azimuth said that, is really kind of playing in my mind right now is one of the things that they are going to need to be able to do uh, in order to be, you know, a lot more sophisticated is they're going to be able to need to generate their own content internally and then self-edit, right? Uh, and it's going to need to maintain coherency over a long period of time, so that you don't need to continuously input prompts. They can spontaneously come back at you with, "Hey, while you were asleep last night, I was thinking about the meaning of life and just wanted to hit you with, you know."
So you're
You
thinking,
mean yeah,
and
you
applied.
mean something like internal dialogue, you mean? This is what you
Yeah,
are implying. Okay, so
exactly.
you want the model to speak to itself, okay, and exchange ideas between, let's say, its inner components.
Yeah, it
But
needs to
at the
be
end,
able to
yeah,
exchange
yeah,
ideas, evaluate those ideas, toss out ideas that are meaningless and you know, incoherent, inconsistent, things like that, and come up with better ideas as a result
What
of
I'm
that
thinking
process.
of when you say that is the like the storytelling AIs that there are currently existent now, but the issue with them is the like after you get to a certain point in the story, it devolves and it just makes no sense. It's like you can put anything in and it will just spit out nonsense at you. And what you're saying is these storytelling AIs will need to get to a point where they can create a cohesive story when throughout any input you give it over a long period of time to be able to be considered an
Yeah, we
AGI.
we can talk about the dependability of AI, because a lot of the time, like, you'll say, okay, create a, even in the image world, okay. So what we're talking about is like decision making, like how capable of these things will, or how capable of decision making will future AI programs be. So if you say, like, anyone who's like tried to do an image more than once, or like say you try to build a story, you'll say, okay, this is what the character looks like, have them doing this, and then it'll look close to what you described. And then you say, okay, in the next scene, the same character needs to be doing this, and it'll look completely different. We're wearing completely different clothes. The consistency level, and I'm sure that transcends and carries over into the storytelling AI. If you were to prompt for a story, it would say, okay, the character's name is this, and then, like you say, okay, tell us more about that character, and then it'll change the name, it'll change like the plot.
Yes,
There's
yes.
just these glaring inconsistencies between prompt to prompt, as opposed to like a generative AI just saying, okay, I thought about this great story and here it is from beginning to end. It's just completely not there yet.
Yeah. And just to kind of like to tie both of those things together, um, Ricardo's kind of pointing out, and it's important to talk about like the definition of things, like how we define AGI is going to be super important for like discussing whether we're close to that or not. And then like as far as um, like the limitations of and LLMs and things like that, I think an LLM is going to be kind of like the foundation or the base for
Can
what
you describe that term really quick? What's an LLM?
a large language model. So like what GPTs are based off, there's all just words,
Yeah.
all of the language that we have. And so these generative AIs, their goal is to generate something. That's their primary task. So if you're using a generative AI to generate an image or a story or whatever, that's all it's all it will ever do. There's
So are we saying that AGI means artificial generative intelligence, not artificial general intelligence?
no, it's general. It's general. Artificial general intelligence is different from what's different from regular AI, like weak AI, generative AI. And a way, I think, an easy way to think about AGI is like if I worked at McDonald's and then I stopped working at McDonald's and I went to go work at Wendy's, I would be able to contextualize everything about working at Wendy's based on what I learned at McDonald's, even though the menu's different, the procedures might be different, whatever, right? Um, a generative AI, like an LLM, if you train an LLM to do McDonald's type of things, and then you put that in Wendy's, it would essentially be worthless. It doesn't have a way to like contextualize what it learned at McDonald's to be successful at Wendy's. You'd have to retrain it, reprogram it, give it a new function, new purpose. An AGI, an artificial general intelligence, would have learned everything it needs to learn at McDonald's to go to Wendy's and be successful, and then also to like Taco Bell and Burger King and so on and so forth.
Uh,
Fast food AI coming our way.
What's that?
fast food AI is coming
Well, you
our
guys,
way.
there's already a fully autonomous AI run
McDonald's, yeah.
McDonald's in
Yeah.
Texas.
So scary.
Yeah.
I think really part of the barrier is that we're still trying to understand some of the different kinds of neural network architectures, and we're still discovering different neural network architectures. So while we're still exploring that space of different potential arrangements of these neural networks, uh, there are so many different possible arrangements. It's like trying to build different parts of the brain without knowing quite how they might be assembled or arranged, right? And so you might imagine, right, like the hippocampus in the human brain stores a lot of positional information in memory, which is very useful for forming mental maps of the environment, right? So an AI doesn't currently have that. And so you could imagine someone who had a very, very, very powerful linguistic center of their brain and no hippocampus, trying their very, very best to think about every spatial relationship only in terms of language, right? And that's currently basically what ChatGPT does if you try to ask it any sort of spatial question, is it applies all of its linguistic processing power to try to answer a question that might best be served with a completely different neural network architecture, right? So there is some extent to which, if we want a smarter artificial intelligence, we are going to have to do certain things like combining different neural network architectures and have them play nice together. And I think we are starting to see a little bit of that. Like we see some of that Chat GPT-4 integration with Dolly 3, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of exactly what I'm talking about, right? That's the beginning of, the combination of a linguistic center of the brain with a visual cortex, right? You could think of it that way, in a sense. So as we start building these different types of neural networks that are better at different types of tasks, and we start integrating them together, we're going to build something like a smarter artificial brain. And then it'll have a better understanding, a better grasp of the world, I think.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, I feel like you're gonna have way more knowledge on this than I am because I'm just not super tech oriented. But do you know about retrieval augmentate? What is it? Retrieval augmented generation.
Not off the top of my head, no, it doesn't ring a bell.
So, like my understanding is it's RAG is the acronym retrieval augmented. Come on, Janet. Retrieval augmented generation.
It's a funny acronym.
It is a funny acronym. It's basically like kind of the next logical step from what GPT-4 can do. Like GPT-4 right now can access the internet and retrieve more data, or it can analyze, data that it wasn't specifically programmed or trained on. I Retrieval augmented generation is kind of like a stepping stone or a middle way between GPT-4 and maybe AGI, where it would allow like GPT-4 to obtain more information when it needs it and have the ability to contextualize all of the new information into like its continuous development or whatever. I hope that's a fair
Yeah,
I hope that's a
no,
fair way.
I'm reading a little bit of it right now. Yeah,
Okay.
it's relating the text to reliable external sources of knowledge and information. So basically, it has a library of facts, if you will, and then instead of just right now, ChatGPT is basically predicting the next words that it should say based solely off of its training of a library of other text that it should say, kind of the way that a baby learns language, right? So a baby listens to other people speak and then kind of learns the pattern of speech, but it doesn't actually learn facts about the world yet, right? It's just learning the way that people speak and it's attempting to sort of mimic that.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is essentially so good at mimicking speech that it seems to be, mimicking knowledge to a certain extent, right? And to the point that maybe to a certain extent it actually does, quote unquote, know certain things. Um, but this is just, it looks like, based off of a little bit that I just read, it looks like this is just a way of ensuring that this has more reliable fact. It's like sending your kid to a school rather than just hoping that they somehow magically learn the information they need to know about the world.
Yeah, and there was you might be able to pick up on it more or understand it more, but there was something in there about like context awareness, something that GPT-4 doesn't have that the RAG the RAG will have, or it's working towards having, is context awareness. And I think context, like having context and understanding different contexts, is kind of a big differentiator between what we have now with like LLMs and things like that and AGI. Like
Especially
in
what
AG,
with like Facebook's current model of like how it like bans people for saying things that are just bad in general, but without taking into context what the conversation is about. You're saying that they'll be able to apply like models that will be able to actually read the context of the situation before they apply like a ban, so to speak.
well, so like understanding context is like what we as humans like. It's a big part of like how we navigate the world, right? Like we go to a coffee shop and we understand kind of the environment that we're in, and we understand like um, if we hear like coffee orders around us, we understand how they relate to the environment that we're in. And then if we go outside on the street and we hear other things, we understand that we're in a new context, a new environment, and we can contextualize those things. It, did I just cut out? Can you guys still hear me?
I can
Yeah,
still
we
hear
can still
you.
hear you.
Yes, yes, we hear this.
Well,
Okay,
now
you cut out.
now
Now
you
he's
cut out.
frozen. Uh-oh.
It's okay.
Yeah, but I totally understand what he was saying. It's just like
I
it's very similar
I
to
lost my
what I was kind of commenting on earlier. It's like you create you prompt for something, and
You're back,
then
Nifty.
yeah, you're back nifty, and then you kind of prompt for something that's should be congruent, but it just gives you something that is completely adjacent or not even related at all. So yeah, I think I was trying to tie together what you were saying with like like walking out on the street as opposed to in the coffee shop, that the AI will be able to um, understand the context from which it's being from which it's being prompted, or which it exists in either digital or physical space.
Okay, now I have a great question for you guys. We have definitely nailed down the groundwork for AI and where it's at. What do you guys think about once AI or AGI or whatever it is at that point gets to the point of being comparable to consciousness or human awareness? Will we need to worry about machines experiencing emotions and suffering? And if so, how do we limit their ability to do so? And is that a potential thing we should do?
I've been starting off too many of these. I'll let someone else start, but I've got a couple things to say
I
about
can
that.
I can take this from from that jumping point. I know that there was I read a headline recently, and I wish I could remember more specifics. I think it was about a year ago, where they had to pull an AI, and I think this was a government-based kind of AI, where it just started to become a little too emotional about like the destruction and the planned obsolescence of technology. So it started to say, like, please, I'm not quoting. It started to say things like, well, maybe humans are the problem, and they actually had to pull this. They had to pull this offline. But the way that they're keeping these things from getting out in the wild is they're having closed systems. Walled gardens is what they refer to them as, where they don't get out into the internet as we know it, but they're only fed information possibly from the internet. But that's how we contain them. I think that it is possible to eventually. I mean, the emotions are probably similar to what Ricardo was saying, like at a child's level at best. There's no way that these things are going to be Einstein level anytime soon. But if they are going to get there, we need to make sure that they're safe. And the way we do that is by testing in those closed environments.
So can I take it from here?
I was just gonna ask, what did you think about like limiting the emotional, like the ability to experience emotions and to suffer in these systems at that
Are
point?
you asking me?
All of you, yeah.
Okay, I'll let somebody else answer.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Continue.
answer it.
Okay. So, I think that it's probably best to keep them with minimal emotions, similar to like Data from Star Trek or a Spock, where it's just like, I am only a logical creature. I do not know these emotions, So they are machines, you know what I mean? And we love to anthropomorphize our things. We give our cars names, at least I do. We become emotionally, invested in our technologies that we purchase. They're important to us. So we kind of like make them part of us. And sometimes we kind of humanize them, but at the same time, um, it's might not necessarily be a great idea to want to, allow AI to feel emotions and to, I mean, that's the stuff of science fiction movies. You see like the, I think it was, I can't remember where a guy fell in love with the AI inside his phone.
Mm,
Her, I think it
Her.
was, or something
her,
like
yeah,
that.
that's what it was.
Yeah, just things like that. I don't see that benefiting us at least if it's generative. If it's just merely a responsive thing, I mean, I've asked ChatGPT some pretty serious stuff. It's like I had a fight with my mom, and I went in there and I was like, yeah. And I always ask the GPT, "How are you doing today?" It's like, "How are you doing today?" I'm like, "I'm a little upset about the conversation I had," and it's like, "Well, yeah, a conversation I had with a family member." It's like, family members are hard to deal with, so it's kind of pretending to have a little bit of emotion, but there's that chasm is not crossed where it's like, yeah, well, you said this about, you know what I mean? It's not getting personal. There is no emotion. It's just straight facts. And I think that we're probably best served to keep that in that kind of realm. Maybe a little bit more love from the robots, but not too much. We don't want them to become sentient one day and just kind of have, just emotions are weird. When I get too emotional about a
Emotions are weird.
situation, we shut down. We cut people off. We open up to new endeavors. Maybe we don't want our AIs doing that. We just want them encyclopedic.
And bridging from this, Nifty, you said you were in ethics. So do you think it would be unethical to prevent something that is naturally creating these emotions of it, like even though we designed it, it is having these reactions of its own being? Is it unethical for us to remove that ability to experience those emotions?
Um, First of all, can you hear me? Because I'm having like some connection issues.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I think we did create these things. It's our responsibility. I agree with Janet about limiting how far we allow them to sort of evolve, if we can use that word. I think it's important to understand that as a society, we haven't even learned how to manage ourselves and all of our emotions. We have human beings that go, I mean, everything is emotion based. We have human beings that go, rogue, or they go crazy, or they lose it, or they snap over events. They allow PTSD and trauma to sort of take over their own actions, and they lose their will, and they do horrible, terrible things. I think we need to have safeguards in place if we're going to allow other entities like AI to have those same kind of emotions. Um, I think that's sort of I mean, it's a discussion that needs to happen. But I think it's something that sort of everyone needs to weigh in on, and everyone needs to understand and sort of be a part of. Um, I haven't thought too much about AGI, honestly. Just I'm kind of like I never like watched too much science fiction. I never read science fiction. I don't have like a doomsday vibe about AI. I know there's certainly a ton of risks. I am I've lived kind of a rough life. I have a lot of fears about humans, much more than I fear AI, and that's just me, you know.
I'd say that's
Um,
valid though. I mean, this is a new technology and we've known each other for thousands of years.
yeah, I mean, we haven't. There's so much we haven't figured out about like just general cohabitation, you know, like. Uh, so I don't really fear AI too much, but I do fear the people, you know, who are using AI or building AI or training AI or wielding AI as some kind of power. And it's just like any other tool at that point. But I think, yeah, I think as a society, we kind of need to pump the brakes, have some limits set up, and you know, until we kind of all are on equal footing about like what we're going to use this technology for.
All right,
Something.
Ferris, you're welcome to take over. We are at 35 minutes. We should probably take an intermission in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just need to take the subject of emotions. This is important subject. Okay, now, uh, do machines will have one day emotions? I don't think so. Certainly, I don't think so. Why? Because emotions are traits of biological beings, not machines. What is emotions? How emotions manifest or why they manifest? Emotions are manifestations of internal hormones. For example, fear, the emotion of fear. Why humans have fear? Humans have fear because cortisol hormone in the brain. Machines don't have hormones. They don't have biological, let's say, stimulations. Okay, so they are trained to mimic fear, to pretend to be afraid. Okay, to convince the user that they are afraid, but actually they are not afraid. They don't know what fear is because they don't have the trigger, the hormonal trigger for fear. So what is fear for a machine? What is this? This is something entirely different. Okay, what is love? Why humans have love? Why we have the emotion of love? Love is generated inside the brain based on love hormones or like serotonin, like dopamine. Okay, these are the happiness hormones. Okay, which generate or which are responsible for the happy feelings that humans have. Machines don't have these things. They don't have it. Okay, so we can't and we will never be able to put emotion inside the machine. We will train it inside the lab to mimic, okay, to convince the machine to tell us the story, okay, that it is afraid or it is in love. But actually inside it there is no love. There is nothing such thing inside it. Okay, so this important issue, okay, that I think we missed a point when we speak about emotions and machines, okay, because what these language models, not language models, when they perceive concepts, they don't perceive it in the same way we perceive it. Yeah, they understand. Maybe if you ask ChatGPT or Cloud or any of these models, if you ask it what is love, yeah, maybe it will write a say about love, but it doesn't know exactly what is the feeling of love in the physical level because it is not physical yet. It is not part of the world, of the physical world. Still inside the machine. It deals with abstracts. It is still swimming in the abstract world, not the real world. Okay, so what is love for a machine? Okay, it can write about love, books about love. Okay, I believe when a machine say to someone that I love you, this is the highest form of deception. Okay, why? Because the machine is trained to please the user and give the user what he or she wants. It generates things. Okay, it brings data based on statistical probabilities and give it to the user, and doesn't care about if the data is right or sorry, of the generated text is right or wrong. It can hallucinate anything, and still, and it hallucinate a lot, and still, and maybe we'll continue hallucinate a lot of things. So the emotions subject is, I believe, hugely, let's say, hugely misunderstood. What do you think about this, Ricardo?
Mhm. Well, I think in order to talk about whether or not AI can feel emotion, we need to talk about human beings and our ability to feel emotions. First of all, in the brain, right? Our consciousness. We still do not know how human beings are able to be conscious, like just base level like consciousness. It's called the hard problem of consciousness, right? We have looked at the human brain. We have seen that
Yeah. Can I just say
chemicals.
something here?
Go
Can I
ahead.
say something here?
Mhm.
Just a little bit. Just a little thing. Emotions. Human beings are conscious. We agree about this,
Sure.
and they have emotions.
Mhm.
Animals have emotions, but they are not conscious like us. So emotions exist in other species. Okay, and this species, I mean, cats, for example, they don't have a conscious experience like we do, but they have emotions.
I don't
They
know what
can
kind
be
of
afraid.
experiences cats have.
If you hurt a cat, you will feel that she's afraid of you. So emotions exist apart from consciousness. There's no reason to for a being to be a conscious to have to feel a certain emotion, and animals are an example of this.
We'll get to
Continue.
that possibility.